Thanks, Jenna. Bartley Kives from the Winnipeg Free Press joining us now to talk about the upcoming election. We are now 3 weeks away from when Winnipeggers will head to the polls, and there's a whole lot going on the campaign trail, but at the same time, not much.
Well, there have been a lot of promises, and at this point, with 3 weeks to go, we do know what the 7 mayoral candidates are promising in terms of what they say about taxation, how much they're going to tax you, and revenue, where they're going to get the revenue. And right now, it's safe to say that I think we're still waiting for a more specific plan, and I'm not convinced we're going to hear it. We have Gord Steeves, for example, he's going to freeze taxes. Paul Havexbeck, she's going to freeze taxes. Where is the revenue going to come from? Every year, the city's operating budget, what the city spends on snow clearing and policing and other services, rises a little bit. And those rises, well, it's not a little bit, rises actually by tens of millions every year because of salaries and costs. And when you get to police and firefighter salaries, these are salaries the city can't actually control on its own because they're settled by arbitration ultimately. Those people don't have the right to strike. The amount that the money is going up every year, where are we going to get that revenue to cover that if we freeze taxes? Now, Gord Steeves says he's going to sell off a number of city things like golf courses and the Winnipeg Police Headquarters. When that's done, what's that? Also, you don't want to tell people, I'm going to sell this off. You're not going to get the best price. Real estate agents real estate people keep that really close to their chest. Judy Wassilisha-Lees is going to raise taxes by a finite amount. She says she's going to use that money to invest in infrastructure. But again, we have this infrastructure deficit that is exceeding $7 billion, and the little bits of millions that she's going to raise, that's just going to cover those operating increases. How are we going to get there? Brian Bowman, other candidates with similar ideas about finite, small tax increases. Nobody is looking big picture, and the problem is, quite frankly, Ottawa, the province. They don't share the amount of money that all cities in Canada really need. American cities have direct taxation powers. Some of them, most of them, get money directly from their federal government. Winnipeg does not. We've been sort of living on fumes and moving pots of money around the last few years. What have we seen instead was the candidates are making all kinds of promises. I am going to ask the other levels of government for money.
Great. It's a great idea.
Lovely. The problem is we have candidates asking the province for money, the feds for money. Robert Falcon-Ouellette wants to have the railways do things for the city. The reality is candidates are promising things that are not really promises, but more like a wish list. I am going to ask other people for this. That is not a campaign. Get elected, consolidate your power, build relationships, and then all that other stuff might be gravy. So I think realistically Winnipeggers should be taking a very skeptical view of all the candidates and asking themselves, well, who's got a credible plan here? And right now, objectively speaking, especially on the taxation and revenue side, there doesn't seem to be one from any of the candidates.
Is that unusual, though? Do we normally see credible, hard plans about how we're going to get somewhere?
Well, yes and no. We didn't in 2010 in terms of revenue. Judy Wassilisha-Lees talked about raising taxes, but had no plan for spending that money. Sam Cates said he would do everything in his power to avoid raising taxes, and then raised frontage levies and property taxes throughout his time. So we didn't have that before. At the same time, you do occasionally find in other cities, in other levels of government, very, very specific detailed plans. But now it's almost okay to just say stuff and just use the buzzword. I'm going to freeze taxes, I'm going to fix the streets, I'm going to... The nitty-gritty, the actual amount of revenue, it doesn't add up. And quite frankly, the city's in a really tough spot. Whoever becomes mayor is kind of going to be like Barack Obama inheriting the foreign policy file from George Bush Jr. It's going to be very, very tough on revenue and taxation for the next mayor of Winnipeg.
And this makes it harder for voters heading off to the polls, too, to kind of...
It's almost like they have to say to themselves, which person do I trust to not screw this up, or to screw this up the least, or to go on the fly? Because whoever's there is... What Winnipeggers may be heading into is service cuts, because if you're going to freeze taxes, you're probably going to have to cut things, and tax increases. We could be looking at both.
Well, the election 3 weeks today, October 22nd. Advanced polls now open, advanced voting, I should say. Bartley Kives will be back every Wednesday leading up to the election at this time with the latest from the campaign trail. More BT coming up. Stick with us.